Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
That's all I got to say. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm great. I got some sore feet on me today. I'm feeling a little sore-footed. Otherwise, I'm feeling good. Been standing all day. Stand-up desk.
I have not been standing since I did make the switch, and then I stopped doing it.
What?
Well, because my tendonitis it made the position of maybe you have a tip for me. The position of where my arms were for my keyboard which, was at my side where my arms would naturally be 90 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
But it made just the fact that I was holding my arms like that all day and typing, it totally made my tendonitis flare up in my elbows, and it just killed me. So I had to stop doing it until my elbow stopped. And now it's swollen the size of Popeyes because I got 5 bee stings the other day.
I was just going to ask, how's your apitherapy?
Yeah, I'm all stung up.
Are you? Is it working?
Well, it's hard to say.
Because of the swelling.
It's so swollen right now. I can't.
Oh, that's the goofiest thing ever. Goofy.
It is. Well, I was like, gosh, why am I doing this again?
That's a great question.
It's so big.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. I mean, not that I was, I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know why I was expecting it to be something else. I don't know. I just don't know.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I feel for you. I sort of. I sort of have pity for it. Well, I sort of feel for you because you did it to yourself. So I recognize that it hurts, and you did ask somebody to sting you with bees, and that's kind of ridiculous.
It was. Yes, it was.
This is The Next Reel, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We talk about movies, and we spoil them heavily, so beware. You can find us on the website at thenextreel.com. You can listen to the show there. You can check out the trailers that we talk about every single week, right on each show episode entry there, show notes, etc. You can join the conversation at facebook.com/thenextreel. Subscribe to us in iTunes. That's the best way to make sure you don't miss a single episode. But you can also find us, of course, in Stitcher, Smart Radio, and your RSS podcast aggregator of choice. And, you should drop us a line at show@thenextreel.com. That's show@thenextreel.com. What'd I miss?
Well, we are planning our 2014 right now, and we have a lot of series that we want to put in there. And we think we've got some really exciting ones, but we are interested in what you guys have to say. So we'd love for you guys to shoot us an email or drop us a note on Facebook. Let us know what series you think would be fun for us to do in 2014. You can shoot us an email at show@thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for joining the conversation. Make sure you catch up on the blog there, thenextreel.com/blog. The goodly and kindly Steve Sarmento continues to put out great posts as he kind of runs the blog. He just kind of does it and does great stuff. Continues to, make us look terrible.
And they're great blog posts. I enjoy reading them.
Me too. So I think that's all we've got to talk about, for old business. I've changed my trailer.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. And do you know why?
I just rewatched your
I know, it was so good. And it's a super kind of, I could do a bonus trailer if you would give me, please the court.
Oh, whoa. I don't know about that.
What does that sound? You are like the dirty old trailer man. Trailer. No,
it was quite there.
Okay, so it was there. The one I was going to do was this sweet indie job and The Secret Lives of Dorks. That's the one you watched, right?
That's the one I watched.
I like that. It looks like a good movie. It reminded me of the kinds of movies I really liked from my youth. And then I changed my trailer.
And it also kind of has that Napoleon Dynamite sort of vibe.
Exactly.
I enjoyed the trailer. It opens September 27th. I think it's already streaming, though, right?
Are you kidding? I haven't even checked. Wait for it. Please tell me that it's already streaming. I would download that right now. The Secret Lives of Dorks. Look at me checking the internet machine. Secret Lives of Carry the One. And there we go. Secret Lives of Dorks is... Wait for it. You want it. Hey, while I'm waiting for it... Oh, see, it's already there. Secret Lives of Dorks is already streaming.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You're not just making that up.
I wasn't. It actually said that at the end of the trailer. I was paying attention.
No,
I was watching.
Dorks are in right now. This is it. You can rent it already. You can buy it if you want it. It's
And then it will have a limited theatrical release beginning September 27th.
Looks great.
does look
Galen Connell.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's going to burst on the scene like John Heder did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So-
I'm hoping he looks. You know who he looks like? He looks like what's his name? Whose career went spiraling downhill after Transformers. What's his name? What's his name?
Shia?
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
You know who's in this movie? And there are three people in this movie that I really, I was really zeroing in on, in the category of
Let me
where
guess.
are they now?
Let me guess.
Uh-huh.
James Belushi,
Yep.
Jennifer Tilly,
Loved her in Bound.
and William Catt.
Boom. There it is. William, Billy, greatest American hero,
Yep.
the cat.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why you need to see this movie. But the other one that everybody should go check out, which is my bonus trailer,
Mm-hmm.
again, hearkening back to my youth, and this is my popcorn movie, RoboCop 2014. I said it.
Oh, wow.
Are you kidding me?
went there.
I loved RoboCop. Tell me you didn't love RoboCop.
I totally love RoboCop, and I don't know. I don't know if I kind of feel like they're screwing it up, like Total Recall was screwed up. I watched the trailer, and it just made me feel icky inside.
No, that didn't. You're misunderstanding your feelings.
I don't think
You are-
I am.
You're misconstruing
My
that funny
feelings were
feeling.
saying, why are they putting Michael Keaton and Gary Oldman and Samuel L. Jackson in this?
That I had that feeling too, but it piqued my curiosity, thinking these guys, they're not complete idiots. So, well, I don't know them personally. Last time we played poker, it was not good. But I don't know them. I feel like I like other things, especially that Fifth Element. Man, I could watch that again and again.
Well, Jose Padilla from
Say
Elite.
that, say that
Jo-
again.
Jose Padilla. He directed that.
I love it when you talk like that.
He did Elite Squad. So I will say, I give him credit for that, because there is a possibility that somebody who could do Elite Squad could make RoboCop work.
Abby Cornish, totally dig her in Sucker Punch. Here's the thing, what I like about this movie, I like that they're playing up a lot of the security privacy things, their free will argument. I think they're making a much bigger issue than that. And from the clips, it really looks like they're giving the Alex Murphy that remains inside the machine a lot more character than the original RoboCop. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
You're full of it.
You're bagging on the original way too much, man.
No, there's no bag.
That holds
There
a
is
very
no bag.
special place
Don't
in my heart.
even go there. I loved that movie. Stop.
I will say they did cast Miguel Ferrer again. So that gives me a little hope.
Where do you stand on RoboCop, the television series that aired from 1994 to 1995?
Never seen it.
Richard Eden, Alex Murphy.
I've never seen
Please.
anything except the original RoboCop. I
Then
never
you
bothered
don't
with the
get
sequels.
to talk about this. You
No,
have lost
it's because
the-
I'm a purist. I think that the sequels and the TV series were all poppycock. Can I say that?
You-
Can I use that word on our show?
I'm just saying you as a purist I think don't have some of the same cultural sort of backing that I do. I celebrate the entire Robo catalog, and so I don't know.
You have a little cardboard RoboCop outfit that you're going to wear to the.
Just saying.
opening night, right?
I'm just saying you try things. I'm a little upset that it doesn't look like old Ronnie Cox is in it.
No.
I sure do miss that. That's one of the best characters in the original movie. So this is all I'm saying. I love Peter Weller in the suit, but I'm ready to see something new. This is one that I would like to see remade. Just to keep it alive.
I'm going. No, here's what I'll say. I will hold judgment until I see it. But man, Kurtwood Smith, come on.
I know. I mean, I know.
Yeah. Paul McCrane. he was the freakiest, especially when he got the toxic waste dumped on him.
That was the best.
I like it.
I'm gonna pull out that movie tonight and start watching that again. That is a movie to celebrate.
Here's it's a minor complaint that I will say. I'm not sure why they're opting to make it PG-13, other than obviously they're trying to draw in crowds. But the first one celebrated its R rating all over the place with just horribleness, which made it the movie that it was.
Yeah, it was. Well, say more about what you mean by this horribleness. How do you define? How does one define?
Kurtwood Smith blowing off Murphy's hand, depicted. It was very much in your face as you watched his hand get blown off.
Yeah.
Just a lot of violence, a lot of blood, especially when they're killing or supposedly killing him. The toxic waste I already brought up when it's dumped on him. Mm-hmm. There's so many things. It was a very, very violent film. That
is the truth. But it was. I don't, when I think about it, I think about when I watched it. I remember being shocked by it the first time I saw it, but it was more of that, oh my gosh, this is such an exciting thing. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah. And it wasn't like it didn't strike. It struck me as violent as The Day. Like it didn't, you know what I mean? Like it didn't really,
Well,
but you're right. I guess I could see that. It celebrated its art. I get where you're going.
And I think that was also part of the point of the film, was it was looking at the violence of this whole
thing. Right.
And by making it PG-13, I just feel like maybe they are diminishing that, or going to have to diminish that a little bit. I'm curious to see it.
I see what you mean. But I wonder if PG-13... Yeah, I wonder if it's not...
It just feels like they're playing it safe because
you think they've sanitized it.
They're trying to draw in bigger crowds.
Yeah,
that's my sense.
Okay, all right. No, you're right. I like it.
So
I'm still going to see it. And,
I am too.
No,
I will. I won't not see it. I absolutely will.
All right, good.
James Vanderbilt, David Self, a couple people worked on the screenplay. The exciting people involved in the project. And as I already said, José Padilla.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
I think you just took this to PG-13. This show.
I think so. Let me talk about my trailer now.
Would you please, for the love of everything,
your
goodness,
2 trailers. My trailer this week is the inevitable defeat of Mr. and Pete. Initially, I went into this trailer thinking it was the story of you and me.
I thought that too.
But lo and behold, it is not. This looks like a great, great film. It's the story of 2 inner city kids. The moms are gone. One, I think, is just lost in the world of prostitution. The other is taken and put in jail. And these 2 kids have to basically fend for themselves, trying to avoid the authorities so they don't end up, getting put into foster care or something like that. I gotta say, everything about this trailer just smacks with just a powerful bunch of performers giving powerful performances, especially these 2 kids who come into this that I had never seen either of these 2 kids before, and they both just look amazing. The 2 kids playing Mr. and Pete, Skyland Brooks and Ethan, I don't know if it's Dizon, Dyson. They both look amazing. But you also have Anthony Mackie, Jennifer Hudson, Jeffrey Wright, Jordan Sparks. It's a great cast. And then, of course, there's, I always hesitate saying his name, Adewale Akunoye Agbaje.
Man,
is that pretty close?
Fire tonight. Fire.
Who I absolutely loved as Mr. Echo in Lost. So very exciting to see him in it. And very exciting to see all of these people in this cast. Jennifer Hudson, watching the trailer alone makes me feel like it was worth it for her to have won an Oscar. The trailer just looks like she is going to do a great job in this. So
for her to have won an Oscar for this?
No, she has won an Oscar.
Well, I know, but you were saying she needs are you saying she already prescriptively needs another one?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying watching her performance in this made me feel like that Oscar win was a little more justified.
Was justified. All right, I see.
Because I was like, well, I'm not sure if just singing a song really well is Oscar worthy. She did fine in that film, but this film makes me feel like, okay, maybe she can carry her own. Kind of like Marissa Tomei. Did she deserve to win for My Cousin Vinny? Gosh, I'm not quite sure. But since then, she's really proven herself.
The thing is, this is the George Tillman Jr., right?
Yes.
And Soul Food, Men of Honor.
I liked Soul Food quite a bit.
Okay. Well,
I did not like
we're
Men of Honor
friends
at all. I did not like Men of Honor at all.
That's good. So we're friends about other things.
That's right.
It's not like I'm hot and cold on George Tillman's other stuff. I'm just mostly cold. And yet, when I saw this trailer, you sent over this trailer, I had not heard of it. I had not seen that it was coming. And it absolutely, just slapped me right in the face with just these kids, these just incredible performances. I watched the trailer 4 or 5 times right in a row because these kids are just spellbinding. Yeah. I am really fascinated by this film, and it makes me think that this, you get those films that filmmakers are meant to make.
Yeah, yeah.
And this seems like this smacks of that.
It does. It really does. It totally feels like this is the film that Tillman was supposed to put out.
Right.
So
I'm very excited about it. I'm glad you brought that one up.
Yeah. So the inevitable defeat of Mr. and Pete opens October 11th.
Outstanding. And now, for the grand conclusion of the drama of the Brothers Coen. No Country for Old Men.
I was sheriff of this county when I was 25 years old. Grandfather was a lawman. Father, too. The crime you see now, it's hard to even take its measure.
Out a bunch of money and the other party is out his product.
Willin, what's in the satchel?
It's full of money.
I always think this is what it come to. I previsioned it.
You know how this is gonna turn out, don't you?
Nope.
I think you do.
What's the most you ever lost? The coin toss. Call it friendo.
I'm watching this movie again, and I'm trying to envision the screenplay, right? You try and envision the screenplay. And this was before I had actually gone to, download the screenplay.
Yes.
And I think that I think there may have been fewer than 200 words in this movie. This is a film that is expertly told with images and character. Just straight up like movement. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, there are long stretches where it's just stuff happening. Joel Coen actually talked about it at one point, saying, this film is really, it was an interesting challenge to make because there's so much physical activity in it that was designed to basically be achieving a purpose. Whether it was the initial hunting scene that we have with Llewellyn as he's hunting the pronghorn that leads him to the money and all of that, or if it's him later just trying to, hide the money somewhere. It's so much of just watching these people do things.
Yeah. So I'm interested in your take on it as you watched again in the context of the other Coens that we've been watching. For me, it felt like it really does feel like a visual pinnacle of the dramatic films that we've covered.
It is, and I think to a very large extent, Roger Deakins' cinematography in this film really does feel like a sibling to Fargo, in the sense that he was really being restrained. He was really trying to keep the images very settled. There's not a lot of, there is movement, but it's purposeful movement designed within the scene, whether it's, Llewellyn running through the scrub avoiding the pursuing vehicle, things like that. But on the whole, otherwise, there really wasn't a lot of camera movement other than like a few real slow pushes in or things like that. It was very deliberately designed to be kind of stepping back, much like it was in Fargo. And I think it really reflects this darker story, and it puts you into a much more serious mindset, unlike some of the other films. Like, Barton Fink is a more serious film. It definitely has a comedic streak going on to it, and it also has a very artistic, twisted streak that allows for more unique camera work in that film. Blood Simple does have some crazier stuff, as does, Miller's Crossing is pretty restrained too, but both of those have that very Sonnenfeld feel to them. And so it definitely has a different feel than I think Roger Deakins' work once he's working with these guys.
I think that the in contrast with those films, what this film and Fargo have I think in spades is this idea of setting as character, right? I mean,
absolutely.
This idea of West Texas takes on as it did in Fargo, the sort of Dakota winter in Fargo. This the setting of West Texas plays a really key role in this film. And so when you say that Roger Deakins was demonstrating a deep restraint in his camera work, I would say that that restraint is underscored by the fact that the character of the setting is screaming to be set free every time they go wide. I mean, it is, I think, an enormous challenge not to really get frivolous with the landscape like that, and he really did not. I think he just let it be, and I think that played really nicely. There was as you watch the kind of interviews and the pressers of this film, you kind of go back in time and you hear the stories that the filmmakers and the actors say about making these movies, and you hear the same story over and over. And one of them was that Ethan had gone to Tommy Lee Jones and said, I think we're going to shoot this whole thing in New Mexico, even though it, the book obviously takes place in West Texas on the Mexican border. And Tommy Lee Jones' response famously is, "Yeah, it'd be a mistake." and true to form, Ethan's follow up, as everybody kind of gets the laugh moment, is, we went down to West Texas and we got it. We understood for what he was talking about. There's something there that is, irreplaceable, and it's it is that same sort of celebration of setting that we get in Fargo, and to some extent, Blood Simple. But really, I think it comes to a maturity in so many ways here. That sort of restraint.
Well, and it's like saying, go shoot it anywhere in the Southwest. It's all kind of that desert. But there's a huge difference between Arizona or New Mexico or Texas or West Texas or East Texas. They all have vastly distinct looks. And I think that Tommy Lee Jones, being from West Texas, actually, from what I understand, he grew up not far from where the story takes place.
Right.
And so he really knew West Texas. He knew exactly this world. And so, he was able to kind of pinpoint that for Joel in a way that Joel probably didn't know, because, his experience in West Texas was not as big. They shot Blood Simple down there, but other than that, I don't think they had much experience there. And New Mexico is obviously a big draw for filmmakers because of the tax incentives that are in that state. It makes it very easy to go look and shoot films there because of the discounts that you end up getting. But when a film really banks on the locale to be as key as it is in this film, you're right. You really want to make sure it's as authentic as possible. And your comments were interesting about the restraint with even the landscapes. And I think you're right. It's interesting that really the only time you see any landscape imagery that really struck me as allowing not just I guess the landscape always kind of has its vast kind of beauty, but it's really just kind of the open spread that you have through most of the film. But in the opening, when Tommy Lee Jones, when his character Ed Tom has his bit of narration at the beginning, that's the only time where you really get those just stunning sunrises, and you get some beautiful imagery at the beginning leading over his opening narration before the film really gets going. And then once it gets going, then it's this much more restrained vision of the landscape.
Yeah, particularly when we see, Moss hunting.
Yeah.
That's when we sort of meet the hardness of West Texas and his relationship to it as he's just walking.
Yeah.
You get this sense of time passing as a result of how the light plays on the landscape. And, the contrast I keep coming up with, and this is, you're talking specifically about New Mexico, and we should say much of the film was actually shot in New Mexico, but the landscapes, the anything with the sort of the wide stuff was all shot in Texas. You look at, my new favorite, Breaking Bad. There is some, distinct stylistic camera work in that film or in that series that sort of illustrates the frivolity that one can have when you have such brilliant skies and, interesting landscape. And I think what we see in Deacon's work here is just letting the landscape speak for itself, not forcing it with any, with any camera trickery or speed up or,
right,
like that. And it really lets you celebrate the character's interaction with it, and like I already mentioned, the long walking where we see the hardness of it, but then to celebrate that contrast when he's running from the cartel and at night when it's not even steady cammed. I mean, it is the most sort of jarring vibration that we see in that camera work as he runs down to the river, all the way to shooting the dog. Mm-hmm. That comes as such a sort of tempo peak because everything else has been so restrained.
Yeah. He really relies on the starkness of not just the story, but of these characters to a certain extent to also tie into the starkness of this landscape and this world that they're living in.
There's something about the character interaction with one another, and this is another parallel, I think, to Fargo. I get the sense when I watch this film that the characters really could be speaking another language. You know that feeling you get when you listen to music that is, that's in a language that you don't understand?
Yeah.
The voice, the sort of vocal track ends up taking on this feeling that it's just another instrument in the band. At least that's what I get.
Yeah.
And I feel like I could watch this movie, in a dubbed in another language and get a very similar feel to what I get as I understand it. The way the characters come into the story and leave it at interesting, surprising times. Just sort of the way they come in, it's more like an instrumental solo for me than sort of than a group piece.
Kind of like what was that? The Peter and the Wolf, where
right?
Each character kind of has their own little motif that kind of comes in and plays for them.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And they there are periods where they play together and they're interacting with one another, but they're rarely on screen at the same time. They you just sort of feel like they're interacting from a distance, and then they go on their own journey.
Yeah.
That's very much the sense I get about this film and about the just sort of the strength of Cormac McCarthy's text.
Well, even to the point where some of the changes from the book, which aside from kind of condensing the book a little bit, they also, I mean, I'm trying to think. You never really have Ed Tom and Llewellyn interact. They pretty much never interact over the course of the book or the film. Likewise, I mean, Ed Tom pretty much is always behind
right.
everybody, but in the book, you actually do have a little more interaction between Llewellyn and Chigurh in the hotel when Chigurh tracks him to the Eagle Hotel. there's more interaction in that scene where Llewellyn actually takes Chigurh hostage for a moment, and then he runs off, and then Chigurh continues chasing him and all that sort of stuff. So there's actually a scene where they're in the same room together in the book. And it's interesting to me that the Coens specifically, and maybe smartly for the film, kind of wrote that out, where, I mean, I really liked the way that they did that scene almost better than the book, because the way that Llewellyn and Chigurh interact, Llewellyn never really has the upper hand. I mean, he does get a hit in, but he's never in a place where he could potentially become the victor. And I found that a really interesting way that their relationship was played, because they're never really in the same physical space together, unless you count the street, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, that's one of the things I find so compelling about this film, is that each character's, each character's ultimate arc is their own. They're all sort of interacting with one another, and one's being chased by another, but ultimately, Moss's, his destiny has been set. You get this feeling that he would drive himself into the ground, whether or not Chigurh was in his life.
Yeah.
From the moment he took the money, he's kind of a dummy, and you get the feeling that his sort of clumsiness is going to. It is really masculine clumsiness. Like he's a man's man doing really kind of dumb stuff. Is going to get him into trouble just because he's always behind.
But the thing that fascinates me about him is he doesn't come across that dumb. He's actually pretty intuitive as far as understanding the trouble that he's in the minute he takes that money. He understands that basically his life is over when he foolishly decides to go bring the water out there. He doesn't catch the tracker for way too long, but by going back out there, he realizes the trouble that he's just put him and his wife in pretty much for the rest of their lives, because that he knows that he has to call her and they have to go on the run now. She's got to flee, and so he does understand all that. And I think some of that comes from being a sniper back in Vietnam. He kind of understands the world of war, but he doesn't really understand maybe kind of the complexities of the military planning, or I guess if you want to call gang warfare military planning. He understands how to be the soldier and how to fight and how to think like a soldier, but he doesn't really know how to plan on a larger scale, and that's really what trips him up, I think.
Well, I think so. I keep going back to this wonderful demonstration of his humanity, that he went back with the water. But it's also a demonstration of his, as you say, his foolishness. And if he is, we set this expectation that he is ballsy enough to take the money in the first place, but doesn't have the kind of what it takes to stick to that path with that kind of criminal integrity. And that's what makes it so interesting, I think.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that decision is that's really the only thing that saves him and Carla, or I should say, that's the only thing that prolongs his and Carla Jean's lives as long as it does, is the fact that he makes that moral decision to take the water out to the dying man in the desert. Because through that and losing his truck, that's the trigger that he needed to realize that now he's being pursued. If he hadn't done that, he would have been sitting at his house with that money, not realizing there was a tracker. Next thing you know, someone's going to be kicking in his door and shoot them both, and it would have been over. It's only because of his mistake, where he loses his truck and gets chased, that he realizes now he's being pursued.
Right. Which, that's another one of those things I wanted to bring up. The number of things that happen sort of undescribed or off-screen in this film, I think make this one of the more challenging films to watch. The sort of visual, the importance of your visual attention to make this kind of happen. The number of people who are killed off-screen that we are, we're left to presume dead. They I think treat the audience with a great deal of respect. in the adaptation here, and I particularly like that. The scene you're describing, I mean, making that connection that, he has made the connection that he's being chased as a result of seeing that his truck has been found, and that, they're coming to the scene of the drop. That's just one example,
right?
And of just how. How much they put into. I love his sense of awareness when it comes, only almost too late. Going back to finding the tracker in the hotel, he's already asleep, and this is the second time this happens. The first time when he wakes up in the middle of the night and says, and goes out to take the water. He's already in bed. He can't sleep, and he wakes up and he says, no way. Yeah, right. That's all he says. And then he finds the tracker. You can tell that he's made that decision, but there's no explanation. There's no coddling or hand-holding. It's and yet it works really well.
Yeah. And then speaking to the challenging presentation for the audience, it is a tricky film to watch because you've got these characters that you're watching over the course of the film, and while largely the film is Sheriff Ed Tom's film, Tommy Lee Jones's character. I mean, he's the titular character. He is the one who gives us the narration at the beginning. He's the one who leads us through to the end. It's essentially his story as he relates this whole tale to us about how this is really a no country for old men anymore. The character that we follow for a big chunk of the film through this briefcase full of $2.4 million or whatever it is, he gets killed off screen.
Right.
It's a very jarring moment when we see Llewellyn pull into this hotel. He's checking in. He's talking to this lady by the pool. They're kind of having this little flirt, even though he's trying to avoid anything further there. And then he kind of smiles at her. We fade out. We fade back in, and Sheriff Ed Tom is driving up as the Mexicans are driving away with their machine guns blasting, and he pulls in only to find a couple dead Mexicans and Llewellyn dead in his doorway and the woman dead in the pool.
Right. That's one I had. I remember the first time I watched it, I had to go back and watch that sequence again and again.
Yeah.
I felt like I was missing something, and then they don't coddle to you after that either. They let that play out, as a crime scene without describing anything until we see Llewellyn's wife show up, and we don't even hear any. There are no lines sort of exchanged in that sequence. She just starts crying when she sees the sheriff walk up to her and take off his hat.
Yeah, and that is really kind of it. And then from there, we just jump into. It's interesting the way that the end of the film just kind of moves very quickly. Right. You've got, him looking at the body. You've got this conversation with the sheriff in this county as he's talking about how times are changing. And you keep getting this driven home. He goes out and he visits his uncle, and his uncle kind of drives that home, and how there's no reason to stick around, that you can't stay on just because you feel that you're the one who has to solve it. That's just vanity. Like all these great conversations that lead him to the end of the film, when he talks about his two dreams. And it's this really interesting film that really relies on the audience paying attention. It only gives you absolutely the essential elements that you need to just kind of make sense thematically of what the story is, because it doesn't really give you the resolution that I think is expected in a Hollywood film. It's more of a thematic resolution in his character as he kind of settles into understanding that this isn't a country for me anymore. I had this dream about my father, about how he's waiting there with a fire for me when I get there. Mm-hmm. And that's the end. It's like he's finally come to terms with this sense of feeling lost in the world that he's in.
Right. No, I absolutely. I think that's the thing that normally I would hate a movie like this. That it's like this. The two characters that we have come to really love, and interestingly, they're both killed off screen, in spite of the fact that a lot of people are killed on screen. Well, I should say, enough to make you shudder.
Yeah.
So they're killed off screen. Bad guy gets away. The money is returned to the people who, to the criminals. And the hero supposedly the hero on the white horse goes ahead and hangs up his spurs.
Yeah.
This is not. It makes you. It's enough to make you wonder how the hell this movie got made.
It is. It really doesn't strike you as a Hollywood film. It doesn't have that sensibility that Hollywood is typically looking for in their films. And I think a lot of that is probably just because it's the Coen brothers. They have a certain ability to get a film made within a certain budget range that the studios aren't going to, bicker over. It's not like they're asking for $150 million to go out and make their films. This one, the budget was $25 million. And through that, they were able to tell a story and really stick with their own sensibilities of storytelling. And I think that shows smarts on the studio side of things, or the two studios sides of things. In this particular case, it was one of these 50-50 deals between Miramax and Paramount Classics, I believe. And they just smartly know how to tell a story. And they ended up with a producer who trusted that. He specifically, I think it was Scott Rudin, knew that these were filmmakers he could trust with the story. He's the one who found the book in the first place and brought it to them because he knew this was a story they could tell. He obviously was, smart enough to look at the book and say, this book has the story in it already. We don't have to change the way that it's going to end. We present the ending as it is in the book because it's perfect. It tells the story it needs to tell, nothing excess.
That is certainly the sense that I get from the adaptation. Let's talk a little bit about the cast.
It's a brilliant cast from top to bottom. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones, I think, we already said he's from this area. He feels like he's from this area. Everything about him says this is a man who really probably in his past life was a sheriff in West Texas, in a small town. I mean, he just feels like this is who he is. And it's strange that he's an actor because this feels like more the role that Tommy Lee Jones should be playing in his life, And so I always find it amusing. And, he did another film that I think is just beautiful called The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada, which was a fantastic, fantastic film that he also directed back in 2005 that takes place along the border. And it just goes to show that these two films, he really understands the area. He knows how to tap into that world and depict it in a way that feels honest, play the roles in an honest way that just feels like it's 100% authentic. And I think they were so smart in casting him in this film. I think he is a perfect representation of this old man who is looking at this world that he just doesn't understand anymore.
Yeah, he's. I don't know what else to say about that. I would add to that. Just that back to this idea, or to watching interviews with him about this movie. There's a very narrow gap between his character in this film and Tommy Lee Jones, the man. It's like you might as well just leave the hat on
exactly.
all the time.
I know.
He's really quite good. I think it's interesting you started with Tommy Lee Jones because, and you've said this before, that the titular character is Tommy Lee Jones, and yet he is. I don't want to say underwhelming. That's not the word, but the understated character in this film. I mean, we spend so much of our time focused on, on Moss and Chigurh, and it was Javier Bardem who won the Oscar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I purposely started with Tommy Lee Jones because I think those other two roles are so much more standout roles. They're the ones that you gravitate to. But for me, And don't get me wrong, I think those two, Josh Brolin and Javier Bardem, and their two roles are stellar. I think they're just brilliant performers playing those two characters. But Tommy Lee Jones is the one who grounds the film and feels he has kind of the connection to that. Like you were saying, we were talking about the landscape earlier. He feels like he's kind of almost like the human representation of the landscape in this film.
Right.
And so for me, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to start with him.
No, I'm glad you did. I mean, that was good. But you can tell where the film strikes when you ask somebody, to kind of listen. You can always kind of get a perception of what of their worldview of the film by who they start with, right? Because the lawman is sort of that iconic archetype, and here we have Javier Bardem, who is the direct opposite, the direct counter, or the to that. Always wearing black hair with the page boy haircut.
He doesn't have a sense of humor.
No, he does not have a sense of humor. He is a fantastic sociopath. Yeah,
and he really he's just so frightening in this film. One of my wife's all-time favorite scene in film, at least in recent film, is the scene where Javier Bardem is talking to the gas station attendant about the quarter and flipping the coin basically for his life.
Right.
It's one of the most frightening, not just because of the context of the scene, but the way that Javier plays that scene. It is so frightening. And he is so mysterious in a way that you can never really quite put a finger on him. And I think because of that, it really, he's got his crazy own sense of morals that just don't make sense to anyone else. And, he's got a really bad haircut. I mean, he just is so good in this film.
What I think is, the nuanced performance of Javier Bardem in this film is, he's a hitman for the cartel, right? I mean, his job is not to go out and kill people, but that he is. He so deftly walks the line between being a completely, sort of. Just completely composed, a professional, to coming completely unraveled at the very simplest of phrases. I think you bring up that it's kind of a legendary scene, the coin toss at the gas station. I guess that the best is for manners and your cracker view of things. Well, I apologize, sir, if you don't want to accept that. I don't know what else I can do for you. And you watch him begin to unravel. He can't. You see his breathing change. You see his face get tight. And yet it is the same. It's that same sort of amplitude that we see on his face as he's strangling the cop in the opening sequence right after his arrest. Right. It is that he's just right at the edge and he doesn't quite go over it, but he's almost there.
Yeah.
That is just that level of intensity. That's it's a wholly unique portrayal of that sort of character that I've ever seen.
It is, and it's written that way in the book. He plays it that way, but he takes it to a level that even reading it, you wouldn't have kind of pictured it that way in your head. And it's just like everything about it feels so intentional, but still you can't quite understand it. It's just, and it's so frightening because of that.
Well, and that's, I think, for the same reason that, that Moss's action seems sort of unintentional until the very last minute of whatever he's doing. It's always just sort of at the very last minute. I think you're absolutely right. Bardem hits this as lockstep intentional. Like he knows exactly what he's doing, when he's going to do it, everything he does. And that's it's just a beautiful performance.
Yeah, frighteningly beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And Moss.
Josh Brolin, I mean, he is the one who we see most just doing things. I mean, he is constantly just doing things. He doesn't have as many lines as you would expect. He just is doing one thing and then he's doing another thing. And, Josh Brolin, like Tommy Lee Jones, and I don't think he has the sort of Texas background that Tommy Lee Jones has, feels so right for this world. And actually he was born in Santa Monica. So, he definitely isn't quite the same sort of, doesn't have the same life that the Tommy Lee Jones grew up in. But there's something about Josh Brolin that feels like he grew up in this world. Watching him in that opening scene where he's hunting the pronghorn, and then he's tracking the dying pronghorn, and then he's just all of that stuff when he's figuring out what happened at the crime scene out in the desert, all of that stuff, just everything about everything that he did in the film felt authentic. It felt like a man who grew up there. Sometimes you watch a film and it's like, he did a great performance, but I don't really buy into him as coming from that world. That's not this performance.
No, no, it's really not. I'm trying to find when he did. So he did No Country for Old Men, and then he did W after that, 2008. I was trying to figure out which one actually gave me more of a sense of his Texanism. You know what I mean? Because when I think of his role in No Country for Old Men, I immediately sort of instinctively think, well, he was George W. Bush, and that's like all Texas to me. But that movie came after, and so I'm misattributing that.
Maybe it's Planet Terror.
Possibly. But he's got, he's just remember him from the Goonies, right? I mean, this is a guy you feel like you've been watching for an awful long time, and boy, you're right. He just feels like a piece of the landscape.
Yeah.
In this film, he's fantastic. I don't want to go too far without talking about his lovely bride.
Kelly Macdonald is such a striking change for her in this film, because she's lost all of that brogue that she has. So you watch this film, if you didn't know that she was from Scotland, you would never suspect that she wasn't from Texas. She plays this so well. I am fooled every time I watch it that she is just somebody from West Texas. She brings that kind of white trashiness, rural Southwest to this role, while also bringing this sense of the world that you don't really expect. And her last scene with Chigurh really brings that home for me, when you really get a sense that this woman is more than you think she is. She understands everything that's going on, and is just kind of like, she's fed up with it. She's just not going to play that game. And I think that's such an interesting change for what you'd normally expect in a role like this.
She's absolutely, and that is, I think when you look at the overall sort of character arc of each of these characters, she's the one that I feel like, I don't necessarily feel like she grows or changes necessarily in this film, but our interpretation of her and what she represents certainly does. And I think when we first meet her, she's just watching TV in a double wide in this trailer park, and she's, we don't. I don't think, I certainly didn't have a very favorable impression of who she was and what she represented. She's portraying a much younger wife. This sort of that Moss comes home and essentially marries a child, and so you think of her as just sort of being the kind of, I don't know, playing the sort of arm candy role a little bit.
Yeah.
And yet, when she has this conversation with Chigurh at the end, and calls him out on exactly how insane he really is.
Yeah.
it shows a level of sort of maturity and awareness that you don't expect, and yet totally makes sense. It didn't catch me off guard at all. It just felt like, she had been awakened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's accepting. She's
Right.
very accepting of her fate, and she's really kind of finished. She's done. She's just like, I'm not playing any games. And it's interesting. Her role changes in the book, because in the book she actually does panic and pick heads or tails. I can't remember. In the book, she does call it, and she calls it wrong, and of course it leads to her begging and pleading for her life. And I think they made a very smart choice the way that they changed it in the film. I find it more gratifying, and I think it works better the way that it plays, because I think it also makes you reflect on Chigurh and the nature of this kind of consequence, destiny, whatever you want to call it, the way that, this is where the coin was meant to end up. This is how your life was meant to end. Like the way that he plays everything. And I mean, you could even, it's a really interesting reflection over the course of all the characters in the film. I mean, even the sheriff and how he was meant to kind of end up in, where he ended up at the end of the film. Just this consequence, and people, you do things in your life, and you can't just forget that it was something that was done. Even if you pretend it never happened, 5 years down the line, nobody knows, but you will always know. And so it's this interesting way that they look at themselves and they look at the world, and the way that he plays everything, and the way that he pushes that to her, and how this is where you were meant to be. This is where this coin was meant to end up. This is where I got here the same way the coin did. All of this almost kind of like this destiny, the way that things had to end up where they were, and the way that she dismisses that and looks at it straight on, saying, screw it, I don't buy into it, you're going to do it anyway, so just get it over with. I just find that so powerful, and I really enjoy that element of the film.
I did too. It's that last sequence when Chigurh comes out and says, she says, you got no cause to hurt me. And he says, no, but I gave my word.
Yeah.
You gave your word to your husband. What I like so much about that exchange is that it really seems to to be a spiritual tie to some of these other elements from Miller's Crossing, and that we've already talked about, Miller's Crossing and Blood Simple. This idea of that there is an ethic. There's honesty and integrity that comes to this sort of criminal, sociopathic, behavior. And he is, in his own twisted way, honoring his duty to his own path. And I find that wonderful. And that scene closes. I know you were crazy when I saw you sitting there. I know exactly what was in store for me. Yeah, things fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
It's just brilliant. And then we don't see anything. He walks out the door and checks his shoes.
I know. It's
just diabolical.
But that speaks to how the Coens really play this film for a smart audience. You don't need to see all the stuff they don't show you. They show you the things that you need to see that tells you it happened. And same thing with Cormac McCarthy, the way he wrote it. I mean, it's very much the same thing. Even where the money ended up. I mean, we see the sheriff walk into that last hotel room late at night when Chigurh is hiding behind the door. He senses that he's there, but he looks down and he sees the vent cover on the wall. It's been removed. We know as an audience that the money is now in Chigurh's hands, and Chigurh has found it, and he has it, and he's able to return it now. We don't need to show all of that. We don't need to see him removing it. It's all just done off screen. But we're a smart audience. We see the clues that they give us to know what's going on.
Enormous filmmaking risk for today's audience to treat an audience with such, I think, respect, and yet really paid off. Nominated for 8 Academy Awards, won 4. Otherwise, extremely well received, this film.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was, and that's just the Oscars. I mean, just BAFTAs. I mean, it's nominated. It was nominated for just everything. I mean, Kelly Macdonald was nominated for a supporting actress BAFTA for this film. I mean, everybody really respected what they did with this film. They respected the storytelling. I think they did a great job. So who else? Woody Harrelson is great coming in as this other bounty hunter. Great little scene, or great little character.
He does. He has a bit. And he is great. He finds the money, for crying out loud. He's how things would have been different. The other one that I just love, Stephen Root.
Yeah, Stephen Root.
I love seeing Stephen Root, and I think he gets the best death. Talk about things happening off camera. Ugh. Boy, do we get his right in the face.
Yeah, that's just a gruesome one. Gruesome. I love Garrett Dillahunt as Deputy Wendell, Bell's inexperienced helper, who's kind of helping him out. He's just so fun to see in everything. I've just been enjoying him since I can't remember what. I think this might be one of the first things I saw him in. But boy, he's been around a lot now.
Talk about another Fargo parallel, though. You get the sheriff and the deputy sheriff. That's kind of dopey.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
And Dillahunt also, I think he may be the only character. I could be wrong on this, but I think he's the only, I shouldn't say character, he's the only actor I know of who's been in more than one of the Cormac McCarthy adaptations. He also was in The Road, which I really enjoy as an adaptation. And I think Billy Bob Thornton's knees should be broken for the adaptation he did of All the Pretty Horses, which is just an abomination.
I didn't actually see that.
Read the book, never watch the film.
Okay.
It was just,
On your recommendation.
He apparently missed every point the book was trying to make. So anyway, Tess Harper, I think, is wonderfully simple in her role as Sheriff Bell's wife. There's not a lot to the role. It seems like it's one of those roles that might be underutilized, or you're not giving the actor enough to do. But what Tess Harper brings to the film, I think, is just it almost feels like she's bringing a sense of wisdom to the film that underplays every scene that she's in. It's just this honesty to their relationship that I think is in all of the simple little, 2 or 3 lines that they share with each other. And I really love her in the film.
Totally agree.
And she was in Tender Mercies in '83. I loved that film. It's such a great movie. She's a very busy woman. She is a very busy woman. Speaking of Breaking Bad, she was in that.
Right. I'm looking for another. Here it is. Beth Grant. Got to bring up Beth Grant. She is a wonderful character actress. And she plays an incredibly great kind of hillbilly matron, and she plays it a lot.
Yes, she does.
She plays it on television. She plays it in film. She is all over the place. And you look at her filmography, she's got 169 credits to her. She was actually, I do this Chautauqua thing every year, and she was one of the speakers last year. She came and hit the Chautauqua stage, and she was just fantastic.
Cool.
And she's nothing like this character. She was only in here briefly. She ends up in the ground.
Yes, she does. Interestingly, in the book, we learned that she is actually Carla Jean's grandmother, and that her mother is, I don't remember what happened to her mother, but she's gone, and her grandmother essentially raised her, and so she's always called her mama. So that's probably why she has gray hair, that gray
She is made really, quite old.
Yeah, she is great in her little role.
Right.
And, I got to say, Barry Corbin as Tommy Lee Jones's uncle in this film.
Oh, yeah.
His one scene is one of those few powerful scenes in this film that's just, it's all about the context of what they're saying, and the conversation he has with Sheriff Bell really struck me as this is a key moment where we're learning a lot about the characters and their states of mind and why he should retire and why he should change his way of thinking and not be concerned about sticking it out to the end. I love his scene in this. It's very simple. I love the look they gave him in his little trailer with all his cats and everything. He's so great in this, and it's just so different from seeing him in something like War Games, which is, I think, probably the thing that I best have him burned into my mind as. I loved him in War Games.
Well, he was great, but really, I mean, come on, man. Northern Exposure.
See, I never saw that show, so I can't say. I know. So for me, it's War Games and Nothing in Common. That's what I know.
I mean, it's fine. It was he just really is. I mean, he's another one of those fantastic character actors, and I think what I love so much about the choices that they made for him, that he we learn some incredibly powerful things about particularly about Ed's character in the very last sequence of the film.
Yeah.
As a result of this exchange with Barry Corbin, with his uncle. And so I mean, he's a pivotal role in the last 3 minutes, and it's fantastic. He's great.
Yeah,
I feel the same way about him that I do with Stephen Root. I feel like they're on the list. Guys that I would just they would probably like me a lot if they knew me.
the best friends who haven't met us list.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't added anybody to that list for a while, so
we need to skew the demographic range of that list up a little bit. So I think Barry Corbin and Stephen Root.
Yeah, I would put Tommy Lee Jones on the list.
I don't think he would.
I don't think he'd ever.
I don't think he would ever reciprocate ever.
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think
Brolin.
So.
I think Josh Brolin would.
Javier Bardem. You think?
That would be. I think he probably would, but it'd be kind of a creepy ad.
I would scare him. I'd be scared of him a little bit.
I would scare him.
I would scare him.
Yeah, Kelly McDonald should totally be.
Only if for no other reason than my daughter could talk about Brave with her.
So good. What else do you have to say before we talk numbers and stuff?
Just speaking to the nature of that we've brought up in shows past, the whole idea of the MacGuffin that Hitchcock had. I think the whole idea of this money that everybody is chasing in this film, it becomes not a film about this $2 million that Moss has and that everyone else is trying to get, but it's about these characters, and it's a great use of the MacGuffin that it doesn't really matter that these guys are chasing that. It's just the characters. And so that idea of the MacGuffin I felt is something that we should mention.
I'm glad you did. Well executed here.
Also, I think that we should mention, we've talked about Carter Burwell a little bit and his wonderful music that he's been bringing to all these Coen Brothers films. And I find it very interesting and smart on the Coens' part to make the decision, which sounds like it was a little bit of a tough decision, but I think it was the right decision to make music, to just leave it very minimal. It sounds like there was only about 16 minutes total in the 2-hour and 2-minute film, and a big chunk of that was actually in the credits, the end credits. And it was very smart of them to leave most of the music out, because it really, again, leaves you with this stark landscape that you're in. And even when there is music, it's nothing that you could walk away humming or anything like that. It's very just kind of that minimalist sound, just kind of the layers that they have that just kind of drive a couple of the scenes. It's very different for what Carter Burwell has done in all the other films that we've talked about, but I find it incredibly effective in this film.
Totally agree. And it's a little cinematic vacation for him.
Yes. Yes. Just a little bit.
Yep. All right. This movie, I think you already said it, made it for $25 million.
Mm-hmm. It was made for $25 million. It had a prints and advertising budget of $45 million, which I found really interesting. That it was almost twice the budget of the film.
Right.
So all told, it was about $70 million went into the overall cost of this film. But it did well. Domestically, it made just under 75 million. Internationally, almost 100 million. So all told, about 172 million is about what it made. And that's, going to my adjusted for inflation scale, that puts the film at coming in at number 29 on our list of all of our films that we've talked about. Overall, the adjusted total gross it made was 190 million, and adjusted profit per finished minute was about $924,000. So it did pretty well for itself. Yeah.
I think this is the top performing Coen Brothers film. Is that accurate?
That is not accurate.
No,
True
it's
Grit.
Not. True Grit.
True
right.
Grit beat it out.
Another
a few
Western.
years later.
Interesting.
Yeah, and this is, that's an interesting comment because it's interesting that some people, do you call this a Western? It takes place in the West. I don't know if I'd call this a Western. I think I would call this a thriller. It definitely has Western elements going on in it, but I don't know if I would call it a Western.
If it's okay to say neo-noir, then I'm going to call this a neo-Western.
Well, I think other people have, so I'll let you.
Oh, dang it.
I know, sorry. You're not a unique snowflake.
My mama lied to me. I guess we could get into a discussion of what makes a Western a Western, but this one, even as a contemporary film, not that contemporary, 1980, set in 1980, to me, it just really reeks of the sentiment of the West, and I think is celebrated appropriately so for me.
Yeah.
So
it has Western elements going on through it. I completely agree with that. I think it's definitely much more of a crime thriller, but you're right. It really does stick with some interesting Western sensibilities. Mm-hmm. But as we've talked about throughout our series, the Coen brothers are people who kind of take a genre and bend it a little bit. They do different things with the genre that you're not really expecting. And I guess as the end of our series, as we come to a close on our drama of the Brothers Coen series, it is interesting to look back and say, yes, they really do like to play with genre conventions. That is something that they really like to explore. They do seem to stick with kind of crime stories or these wacky comedies, or kind of doing some crazy art stuff. But there always is that challenge that they seem to put upon themselves to do something a little outside of what your expectations would be for the genre.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's an astute observation.
Yep.
This has been it has been a real treat, I think, for me particularly, because I don't my memory of the Coen brothers films is it's always in discrete chunks, right? I remember the Coen brothers films as individual entities, and I think it's to really be able to sit back and evaluate to evaluate these films together as a unit. It's given me a new appreciation for the sort of collected sense of tone and voice that these guys have. Yeah. And really that sort of ideological worldview that they tend to celebrate again and again and again. They have a unique gift at really bringing out the often unseen characteristics of the underdog in a way that can turn him into an interesting hero.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
And damn if they don't cast great faces.
Oh man, that is an amazing skill of these guys collectively.
Yeah.
Being able to do some just rocking casting.
Yeah. From everyone from Javier and Tommy and Josh to the lady who runs the motor park where Llewellyn and Carla Jean live. I just love the faces in this film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last little note before we flick chart it.
Do it.
These guys were the 5th directors to win 3 Oscars in one night. They, of course, Joel and Ethan won 3 for the screenwriters, adapting the screenplay for this film, for directing the film, and for producing this film. Before them, you have 2003, Peter Jackson winning the 3 awards for Lord of the Rings, Return of the King as producer, director, screenwriter. James Cameron in 97 winning for Titanic for producer, director, and editor. Francis Ford Coppola in 74 winning for The Godfather Part 2 as producer, director, screenwriter. 83, James L. Brooks for Terms of Endearment as producer, director, screenwriter. And back all the way to 1960, Billy Wilder for The Apartment for producer, director, screenwriter. The only other person who's won 3 that I could find the same night was the composer Marvin Hamlish in 1973, he did the score for The Way We Were, the song The Way We Were, and they had an interesting category, which is I think the only reason he managed to win this, was adapted score, which was for The Sting. And there's only, from what I could find, only one person who's actually won more than 3 Oscars in one night, and that was Walt Disney, who won 4 Oscars in one night, and that was 1954. He won Best Short Subject 2 Reel for Bear Country, Best Short Subject Cartoon for Toot Whistle Plunk and Boom, Best Documentary Short Subject for The Alaskan Eskimo, and Best Documentary Feature for The Living Desert.
Well, you know, when you slap your name on everything.
Yeah, that man won 22 Oscars over the course of his life.
Hey, have you, speaking of Walt Disney, did you catch the trailer for Escape from Tomorrow?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that again.
Yes, we will. I'm very curious how they're managing to actually release that film.
Right, me too. Yeah.
I really want to know the story. I want to know. All right.
Let's flick chart it. You can find us over at flickchart.com/thenextreel. Check us out there. That's where you find the golden list of all of our favorite films. And you know what? This is 99 of the shows that we've done, of the Next Reel shows. Obviously, we throw in the film board over there, and so I think we're up to, 112?
This will be 108.
Oh, 108, right. Yeah. Sorry, we had some overlap. But this is the big 99 of our modest little production here.
A regular show. And you know, this is my favorite Coen Brothers film, so it's likely that this is going to be shooting up toward the top for me. So all right, No Country for Old Men or Inside Man? It's totally No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, it's going to be No Country.
Not even a question for that one. No Country for Old Men or The Social Network? Ooh, there's an interesting one.
See, for me, that's going to be The Social Network.
See, for me, it'd be No Country for Old Men. And I have to, I mean, everything we've talked about tonight.
Is it? I mean, really? Like, am I going to be giving up?
And it could be because
when it's No Country for Old Men against Moon, I'm gonna call in a chip.
Yeah, boy, Moon really just was suffering for a while there. The middle of our list, always the first thing that we have to rank it against.
I'll give you No Country. I do quite like this film, so I'll give you that.
No Country for Old Men or John Carpenter's The Thing?
No Country for Old Men.
Yeah. I mean, I love The Thing, but No Country for Old Men or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Oh, I'm delighted to hear this. What please tell me.
I'm still No Country for Old Men.
Really?
Yeah.
You're kind of a hooligan for Spotless Mind.
I am. I really am. But this film really just strikes a chord in me.
Oh, man. Okay. I see where this is going.
Now this is tricky though. No Country for Old Men or Alien?
Alien.
I am gonna have to go with Alien. No Country for Old Men or Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, I have to. It's No Country for Old Men or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
I have to say I'm a little torn on that one. But I will go with Butch Cassidy for that. Although I feel a little guilty, but I am going to go.
No Country is not listening.
It is now number 7.
Oh, not bad.
Not bad. Broke into the top 10 pretty easily.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
That
feels about right.
I think it definitely deserves to be there.
Are we going to talk about where we're going next week?
I don't know. Should we? Our big 100?
The big 100.
It's pretty exciting.
I'm pretty excited about it.
I'm
This
very
is good.
excited.
I feel like I don't know. I worry that we're not going to appropriately celebrate. Like we should, I don't know, have horns, have
do a
some sort
jig?
of horn, some sort of horn celebration.
A horn carrying the fire.
Where, yes,
And then
there will
we'll
be
wake up.
fire and so other pyrotechnics.
Yes.
I think we should. We are doing this. We have been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yes, we have. And I think it's fitting that it's number 100. I don't know why, but I think it's great.
I do too. It's sort of manufactured luck that this film would come out.
Completely
let's just
luck.
say this. It is still. It's luck that it's still in theaters, even though it's been out for a little while. We are doing the third and final in the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, The World's End, from Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and company. And I can't wait to talk about this film. Talk about a film that has struck a chord with me. I like it more now than when I first saw it. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about it.
I've seen it 3 times, and I'm hoping to see it one more before we talk about it. I am a little goofy for the film.
I know. How did I didn't see that coming. I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud. I'm more goofy for this film than I was for Hot Fuzz. I'm pretty torn on Shaun of the Dead.
Hot Fuzz has always been kind of my favorite. I think it's just such an easy one to go watch. We'll talk about more of the.
I know.
I love them all. They're all just fantastic.
They're fantastic. So we're hitting that next week. Thanks everybody for listening, and I think I'm gonna go to bed.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor.
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.